Whenever you have a hypothesis problem, you, even before I read it, you're looking for words like prove, claim, show, give evidence. Anything that gives you directionality, that's the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis people already believe. It's that change or that difference that we're trying to prove. So when we read a question, we want to read it from, okay, what am I trying to prove in this? So it says a coin-operated coffee machine was designed to discharge 7.3 ounces. That's what it's supposed to do. If it dispenses more, they lose money. If it dispenses less, customers complain. Believing that the mean amount of coffee dispensed by the machine is less than what it's supposed to be, they plan to do a statistical test to test this claim. So since this less than is their claim, that's going to be our alternative hypothesis. Is that okay? And it's never going to be equal to. It's always just going to be in an exact direction. So I start off with my alternative, hi Rob, and say less than 7.3. Once we have our alternative, we go back and fill in the null, which is the opposite. So once we have the alternative, the null will be greater than or equal to that 7.3. Now, a type 1 and a type 2 error, I am not going down to what's down there. We want to actually know what a type 1 error is and what a type 2 error is by definition. So a type 1 error is the probability we reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. That's the definition. Without reading anything, that is the sentence. A type 2 error is the probability we fail to reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is false. So we want to use these sentences for whichever one they ask, but it is exactly this sentence. So we set up our null and alternative hypothesis. I'm going to keep these sentences open, but down a little bit. So they said, what is a type 2 error? A type 2 error is we fail to reject the null hypothesis. If I fail to reject the null hypothesis, if I fail to reject this, then I fail to reject the null hypothesis. So I simply write in the null hypothesis. When in fact, so going directly from that sentence, a type 2 error, I fail to reject the null hypothesis. Fail to reject. Sorry, when the null hypothesis is false. So I failed to reject the null hypothesis when in fact, if the null hypothesis is false, then the alternative is true. So I failed to reject this when in fact my alternative is true. Let's change that sentence. I don't like that sentence, but we're going to change it to make the computer happy. Where did my Word document go? That's when you know you have too many documents open. Got it? No. So when the alternative is true. My computer won't let me see my Word document. It's making me sad. Nope. Oh well. Can't show you my Word document to write our sentence better. So a type 2 error is when you fail to reject the null hypothesis when in fact the alternative is true. Suppose that Big decides to reject the null hypothesis. What sort of error are they making? So then you have to go through the definition of a type 1 and a type 2 error. A type 1 error is rejecting the null when the null is true. A type 2 error is failing to reject the null when the alternative is true. And so if they've actually rejected, the only type of error we can make is a type 1. Going to